Coming up in the post-game recap, the Bucks outlast the Heat in Miami. Some late heroics from A.J. Green. A huge first half from Damian Lillard. And some moments from Pat Connaughton and others who have been exiled from the rotation. Frank and I dig into all of it coming up after this.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia. He is Frank Madden. We thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen every day. And your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Bucks daily newsletter, the one-stop shop for ultimate league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up now for free at lockedondaily.com. That is lockedondaily.com to start your day with the all-new free Locked On Bucks newsletter. Today's episode of Locked On Bucks is brought to you by Robinhood. Robinhood Gold provides the privilege of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up now at robinhood.com/gold. The gold standard tonight in the first half, Frank, was Damian Lillard, who had 25 points. He could not miss. And look, if you would have told any of us this a couple of games ago, I don't know how many would have believed it. He'd really been mired in a shooting slump. I don't know how much of that had to do with coming back from the concussion. We saw some of it beforehand. But this was everything you envisioned in the first half from Damian Lillard. And not coincidental that it's the night where he is the number one guy, because these are the spots he really excelled in last year when Giannis was out.
Yeah, I always think back to the game in Toronto last year. I think they lost the first game against Toronto last year, and then
A bloodbath.
Giannis was out. And then Giannis was out when they were up in Toronto for a bit of a revenge game, and Dame was unstoppable, and his shooting and his passing, and they kind of won a blowout, and that felt like it's hard to say that was like a turning point game because obviously they expired their coach a couple months later, but that was an important game, I thought, early in the season. And this game, that there were real stakes with this game, right? This was a game that if the Bucks won, they would be even further in the driver's seat for their NBA Cup group, which, maybe some people don't care about as much, but hey, we don't know exactly how far this Bucks team's going to go. So of course we have bigger ambitions with this team than just an NBA Cup, but I had fun with it last year. When you're winning games and you have a chance to win something, that's good. To do it in Miami, Bucks had lost 6 games in a row on the road, period, since opening night in Philadelphia. And obviously Miami is a place where they have had a very spotty record. They've had some really good performances there, but obviously have had some very forgettable ones as well, especially going back to that playoff series a couple years ago, which obviously sort of was, the trigger point for some of the huge changes that this franchise has seen over the last couple of years. And then I think, just the symbolic opportunity to get back to 500, right? 500, I don't think, I've ever been as excited to see the Bucks at 500, since, I don't know, certainly since the Bud era, right? Maybe there are times during the Kid era I was happy to see the Bucks get to 500, but after the tough start and, everybody piling on and the fake insiders talking about, GMs thinking the Bucks could trade Giannis here or there, whatever it might be, to regroup and have this team come together and win a bunch of games they should have won in most cases, right? But to take care of business and consistently show up night to night, and then in this game, Giannis ends up, he was questionable with a calf injury. I hope to never hear the word soleus, whatever it was again. The last calf injury he had last spring, but then gets ruled out due to a knee effusion in his left knee, which I looked it up. It's basically like a fluid buildup around the knee. Don't love that either, Justin, but he does have, however many days off now until Saturday. So hopefully here he'll have had, basically a week off essentially between games, which, we've seen the Bucks they typically like to try to do that, right? Like if you can have him miss 1 or 2 games and get really an extended period off, that's often how they've sort of strategically rested him. So to have the NBA Cup kind of component of this, chance to get back to 500 after all the early season struggles, to do it in Miami against the Heat, snap that kind of road, streak that they've had for a while here now since opening night in Philadelphia, and to prove that you can do it without Giannis, who obviously has been the driving force of everything good. This is just I'll call it a great win, right? I mean, I usually say it like any win without Giannis is a great win. A road win without Giannis, a road win against a rival who obviously has playoff ambitions, and having that little extra cup kind of component is great. And as you said, I mean, for Dame to look like Dame and fill, that superstar role the way he did tonight was awesome. I mean, I think you can extend it. He hit those 2 early threes in the third quarter as well. And so he was at 31 points very quickly. And then obviously the last quarter and a half became a very different type of basketball game for the Bucks, with what Spo and the Heat kind of went to different looks. We saw more zone, and then we saw a lot of doubling, trying to get the ball out of Dame's hands, and was not the most confidence inspiring there in the fourth quarter. But credit to the Bucks. They did what they had to do, and at the end of the day, they hit a bunch of shots today from 3. They didn't really do a whole lot else in this game, but they made enough shots. Guys stepped up. A lot of names we'll talk about who we haven't talked about much in terms of contributing, and it's just a great team win, right? I think I was just texting with our friend game, right? I mean, these are the kind of games that I think just bring a different sort of energy to a locker room, to the plane ride back home, because guys that were on the bench, haven't been contributing much, got a chance to play and do things to help the team. And everybody, I think, collectively probably feels like, man, we showed that we can do this even, when Giannis needs a night off. So all around, I rate it 5 stars, Justin. Leave my review on the App Store or wherever, Apple Podcasts. That's my review of this Bucks game. And whether they won by 20 or 3 or 1 point, this was a really satisfying win.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that, and it's another one of, I think this is the 3rd this season, which again, something that 2 years ago, 2 years ago we wouldn't have really celebrated this, but I think this is the 3rd win this season that they never trailed in. That the Heat just tied it, and these are games that we'll get to what we saw late in this one in the fourth quarter and second half of the third quarter, but these are games that the Bucks have found ways to lose in the last 12 months. So we're starting to see some progress there on that front, that they're at least hanging on to win these games. You mentioned some surprising names that we'll get to. One, maybe not so much, but very interesting minutes in the first half, especially for one player. So we'll get into some of the contributions from those role players that helped fuel this victory, propelling the Bucks to 500 now on the season. We'll dig into it next on Locked On Bucks. Time to talk to you now about our friends over at Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. And get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to take place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so some of those names in the first half, Frank, you kind of wondered with no Giannis if this was going to be a spot for Pat Connaughton to reemerge. We saw that. Doc Rivers gave a little insights on that afterwards we'll get to. But Marjon Beauchamp with some first half run as well. He did knock down a three-pointer. And, I mean, I don't want to make too much out of it, but I think he gave you some pretty good defense in the minutes that he was on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to feel good for Marjon, right? A guy that really kind of going back to last season, right? Played a fair bit early last season. He's a guy that basically played. If you go back and look to the game log, he played a lot under Bud his first year in the early part of the season. Had some really encouraging games. I mean, like, it's kind of sad in a way to look back at remember some of the games he had early in his rookie season, and he had some encouraging games early last season as well. And then it's just been this thing these first 2 years that he basically just kind of, his star kind of just fell as the season went on. And obviously by the end of last season, AJ and Ajax were kind of well ahead of him, I'd say, in the pecking order. And, Marjon just felt like he was kind of banished to the doghouse. And I think Doc would have acknowledged, like, he really, hadn't really gotten a chance to see Marjon play much in games, right? Having not coached them or been through camp. And obviously summer league and preseason, like, didn't really change that. Doesn't have his option picked up. A guy who has every reason to kind of be down and probably not respond in the way that you would want if he got this kind of random opportunity almost out of nowhere. So for him to kind of stay ready and come in early in a game, right? Which I'm sure all of us kind of, when he came in, I was like, is there somebody else missing that am I forgetting, like, other than Giannis? But for him to come in, and just look competent, right? I mean, he blended in, made quick decisions, hit that open three after, a pump fake and a kind of sidestep. Again, obviously we didn't see much of him thereafter, but, like I said, he's one of those guys, and I'm sure probably having a much better, bus ride, flight home than he's had in quite a while. And again, I don't know that that's going to be indicative of more opportunities, moving forward. But, again, I think it's just a good thing for the team, for the locker room, that kind of everybody gets a chance. And that's obviously kind of what the art and, the art and science of coaching is, knowing when to call a guy's number who maybe hasn't been playing. And who knows, right? Maybe there was something Doc saw in practice recently or something like that, and you wanted to give him a look. But, kudos to Marjon for being ready and, delivering at least that little shot in the arm when the Bucks were going on a run, right? They had a nice run to start the second quarter, and that kind of really, obviously they were leading kind of from the outset, but then I think it was down to 8 at some point late in the first quarter, and then they really extended the lead in that second quarter, and he was part of that, with Dame on the bench. I thought that was one of the really key parts. If the Bucks had won in a blowout, I probably would look back at that early second quarter period when Dame was on the bench, and they really sustained and expanded the lead even a little bit, as one of the more crucial parts of the game. Obviously there were other parts, given that the lead eventually kind of vanished entirely, but yeah, Marjon doing his thing. And we probably want to talk about Pat as well, because we talked about it. Pat played well in his last bit of action in Charlotte, whenever it was, a week and a half ago. Misses 4 games, they win them all. And I thought he gave them a nice boost tonight as well, in both halves.
Yeah, I thought Pat played really well tonight. And Doc said after the game that, with no Giannis, I remember what game was it that Giannis missed earlier that he missed and Bobby Portis started in his place, and you wondered, are they going to start Bobby and basically exhaust all of your bigs right out the gates? And they did. They did not tonight. And Doc said, we knew we had to reserve that, but we also knew we're going to need threes. So we went to small ball, and that's why you saw Pat Connaughton playing a lot. That's why you saw Marjon Beauchamp back out there, and that's why we started both Ajax and AJ Green. But, Pat Connaughton, I think we talked about this last time too. I think in the minutes he's been on the floor, I think he's played well overall. It's, it's just he's a 10-year vet, that the athleticism is not what it once was. And that's what stands out the most. But he's still the guy that was creating shots and creating offense by cutting to the basket. That's really what they missed the most when Dame was off the floor, is you wondered, okay, these are mostly shooters. So where is the offensive creation going to come from? And as we've seen time and again, it's pretty much Pat Connaughton that you leave it to. Not that that's the greatest thing, but he's the guy that's able to do that. So just the way that, you mentioned coaching and the nuances of finding the right plays or the right spots for guys, that's one thing that's stood out to me the most during this run with Doc Rivers is, for as many bullets as Doc Rivers takes, I think he's done a pretty good job of managing that this year and saying, okay, Pat Connaughton's out, as he would say, not out of the rotation, but we have guys that have eclipsed him now that we're back to close to full strength. But Pat Connaughton staying ready is a credit to him and getting those opportunities when you need. And even stuff like, I know we'll probably get to in more detail, but Andre Jackson Jr., you continue to see the good with the bad, and in many instances in the same sequence where he'll make the great play.
Within seconds of each other.
Right. But I suppose it's a credit to Doc Rivers that with a handful of coaches at least, he's just not going to play, because you just look at, okay, the offense is really killing me. It's going to be tough here. So I'm just going to somebody else. I'm going to Pat Connaughton. To Doc's credit, we have not seen that. And you've seen limited minutes at times for Ajax. He talked about it after the game too, that last turnover where you really had a chance to ice the game. He said it was something we worked on during practice and during the walkthrough today of don't pass it in the nail in those spots, because Miami has great length. They have guys with good hands. They're going to steal the ball. And he did it. But I knew I didn't want to yank him. I didn't want to yell at him. It wasn't the time and place. It's something that we'll go through in more film study tomorrow.
It's kind of funny with Andre, and it's funny. I've had these discussions with Eric about his nickname, and Eric's always said, like, look, the other players would never, we were talking about Ajax as a nickname, and Eric was saying, like, well, the other players don't call him Ajax, so therefore, like, Eric didn't really like the nickname. And I was like, well, it's really like if the announcers call you that becomes your nickname, because that's what the fans hear and like whatever, right? Like maybe it starts as like a Twitter message board thing, but then if Lisa and Marcus use it, and they've started to use Ajax, but I think I heard in some press conferences them call him Ajax. So Ajax may be his like locker room nickname, or like at least one of them for now. Or Dre, I know they call him Dre too, but
Dre yeah.
Dre, I don't know, too simple to me.
So are you saying Derry Bird isn't an actual nickname?
Well, look, I've always I really hope that Pale Ellis would catch on for AJ Green. I don't know if enough fans know who Dale Ellis was and how good a 3-point shooter he was. He played for the Bucks when I first started following them. I'm sure you, Justin, remember those days back in the like 90-91 season or something. Might have been his last season with Milwaukee. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, Andre is funny because it's just hilarious to look back on kind of the scouting report of him. I mean, again, and not that people were saying that he was, this great offensive player, right? And he averaged like freaking 6 points on terrible efficiency in college. So clearly there were limitations there. But everything was about his 3-point shooting was so bad. But it was like, his basketball IQ and his ball handling and playmaking, all that. And like, the only thing that I actually like feel like I know what I'm going to get from is his 3-point shooting on offense. Like the only thing, obviously his hustle is always there. But like, he's actually been like remarkably consistently solid as a 3-point shooter, like his entire, which I know it's only like, 1.25 seasons now, but that's like actually been kind of his like most adequate thing that he does offensively. Obviously defense, like especially the second year, he's been awesome. But offensively, like, man, his decision-making is just like so anxiety inducing. Like it's just like you.
Yeah, I was going to say, you could say when he gets the ball in his hands, he has concepts of a plan for what he's going to do offensively, but there's no concrete details of here's how I'm going to attack.
Yeah, there is some natural passing ability. Like I think there's passing touch. and he's super unselfish, but the, kind of like basketball IQ, knowing what you can get away with and, can and can't get away with against NBA defenses, right? That is obviously still very much evolving, right? And the, knowing when to sort of not do something, right? Errors of omission and commission, there's still a lot of both. But and so the passing, like, he'll make some really nice passes, but then just try for things. It's like, oh my God, like he doesn't turn it over a ton, right? It's not like he has like tons of turnovers.
It just
but when
stands
he
out.
does, it's always like,
it's inopportune times. Yeah.
And I think I tweeted the other day, he took, what was it? Was it in the last game or 2 games ago that he took like 2 floaters from like really far out, and it was just
I think it was 2 games ago. Yeah.
I mean, he has this knack, like he doesn't want to shoot a mid-range jump shot, so he just sort of flings it with, like a floater.
It was like a catapult.
My comment was, and I just, like, my take is like every floater he shoots just looks like, the worst shot ever taken in an NBA game. It just looks like so weird. But 3 plays, so he had 3 baskets tonight. Didn't have any threes. He had one really nice slip of a screen from Dame. Dame fired it right down the middle, caught it, went up, dunked it.
No
Beautiful,
hesitation. Yep.
Simple catch, dunk. Yes, we like that. But then I thought I thought the 2 plays after that, he had a transition take where he, again, it wasn't, like a Giannis level dribble through the entire defense thing, but got a pass and angled his way down. I think he, acrobatically finished. I think it was with his left hand too, in transition, which was awesome. Maybe that one was his right hand, but finished in transition, which love to see, right? He's the only Buck who's athletic in the open court other than Giannis. And so for him to begin to weaponize that a little bit is great. And then I thought the last one was probably the most impressive, which was late shot clock. I think he caught on the left wing, attacks off the bounce, and, just good body control in the air, finishes. I think that one was with the left hand, just beating the shot clock. And that was, I think at that point, I forget what the Bucks' advantage was at that point, but it had started to shrink. And so for him to show that confidence, and again, like, part of it is that we've talked about it, like, other than, Dame with no Khris, like, the Bucks don't have a lot of guys you want with the ball in their hands late in the shot clock. You have a lot of guys who, it's like they catch it, they're kind of feeling like, what do I do with it? And, for him to just like realize, like, okay, I got to go up with it. I got to do something with this ball. I can't just hot potato it to the next guy, which is often what these guys do. For him to just go in attack mode and have enough awareness with the shot clock, or who knows, maybe he didn't know what the shot clock was, and it just so happened to work out. But that was a really impressive play, which a lot of guys can't make because they just don't have his physical tool set. So you just kind of hope that, like, him doing this in game, we know that Doc and the coaching staff are encouraging him to take shots like that and to use his athleticism like that. So for him to do that in game action, in important situations, especially, like, that's great to see. And to me, if he can hit 30%, right? He's been above that in his career so far, but if he can hit just 30, low 30s from 3 and do what we're describing, like, twice a game, like,
perfect.
I just think that changes how he gets perceived and defended, so that was just really encouraging to see. And of course the defense, what he was doing, I think there was a play in the first quarter where, like, he stole the ball, but it wasn't even, I didn't even see it on the broadcast because, like, they were focusing on something else, because you don't expect the guy to steal the ball so soon after the
Was it
inbound.
Doc Rivers bending over?
I think he forced the 10-8 another time. So it's just really, just really good stuff to see from him. And obviously they needed it because they were down their number one weapon here when Giannis.
Yeah, he had those moments, and again, it's the good with the bad that you take with Ajax as he continues to develop on the offensive side. So just looking for those growth moments, but those 3 plays that you described were what stood out the most to me, especially the one where he just attacked and went straight to the basket when Miami was trapping Dame, and he knew, I got to score, and it's wide open for me with my athleticism. So here, I'm going to attack. So continuing to see that is going to be huge for him. Like, we've seen him, I don't know if they fully moved away from it, but when it was Ajax in the dunker spot and realized you just got to shoot this man. He's too unselfish for his own good that you're clogging up the space, especially those minutes that Giannis is on the floor. So maybe we see that reemerge and seeing Ajax kind of or Dre Ajax learn from that. But I thought overall, look, you take those turnovers with everything else that you're getting from him here tonight. One name we did not mention yet, and he hit, I guess, the biggest shots of the night, and maybe would have had one more had it not been for 1/10 of the second on the shot clock, is Pale Ellis. So we will get to what AJ Green gave this team coming up after the break here on Locked On Bucks. Well, it is that time of year where we're all envisioning warmer weather, maybe taking off somewhere, getting some vacation time in, looking for some perks and rewards that can help you make that vacation easier. And that is where Built comes into play. There is no cost to join Built. And as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Built points towards. Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by joining at joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That is joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Join Built, BILT.com/LockedOnNBA to start earning points on your rent payments today. So AJ Green with more big shots, and he'd been in a bit of a shooting slump. He had an 0 for 5 game recently. He and Taurean Prince were the only guys that were hitting shots early, so it's only natural now that everybody else is that AJ Green falls back to earth. But he started very cold on good looks, but hit some very big shots for this team. And I don't know how you feel about that last one that did not count. I've seen a lot of, Pat's got to go up and shoot that. I get it for Pat Connaughton. That guy is wide open. He's there. He just hit 2 big shots. I don't know what Pat Connaughton's going to do with it from that point on the floor at around the free throw line. So I don't totally fault him, but, man, some more big moments from AJ Green.
And I guess the one thing on that, like, when you talk about the clock, right? I think this was the hardest part, and Jeff or Stan Mangani brought it up on the broadcast, like how late the Bucks are getting in the clock. This is like one of the hard parts when you're trying to defend like a lead on the road is, it's always the team's inclination to just slow everything way down. And we've talked a lot about pace, not just like fast break, but just pace in your half court offense as well. Like, get into your sets early, start your actions, et cetera. And I thought what Miami did so well was they basically just turned it into, a situation where the Bucks basically were playing as though they had essentially 12 seconds on the shot clock to work with, right? Because it seemed like every action, started late because Dame was, get in the front court. It's like you don't want to try to force a quick shot, I think, because you worry about feeding the crowd a little bit, like it's almost like you don't want to like give in to that or something. But the fact that the Heat were just pressing up so far out on the floor, I think, led Dame to also, like, Bucks were just constantly trying to like kind of figure out, like, okay, like, Dame was trying to figure out like where did he want to position himself, like who did he want to set a screen to try to get a switch. Miami was kind of pre-switching certain guys. Dame was trying to, kind of architect like who you could get a matchup on, and then where he could attack so that he wasn't attacking, into the teeth of the defense. And then obviously if he does that, then who's open, et cetera, when they bring that extra help. So, man, I just with AJ, right? I mean, it's just, we've seen Duncan Robinson hit tons of contested, difficult, annoying shots against the Bucks over the years, and it's pretty cool to have a guy like AJ who is, at that level of just able to get shots up at really high volumes, able to hit, super contested shots. We saw him do it, the other night as well. It just doesn't matter. Like, just doesn't matter at times, and on the one hand, I think his ability to create separation off the bounce is obviously a limitation, right? Like he's never going to be a guy that you can just give the ball to and he's going to go out and, get you 20 points or something like that. That's just not kind of his game. But man, he does not need much space. And as a catch and shoot guy, he needs very little space. And, he can put it on the floor, dribble here, dribble there. And in that respect, there is at times kind of that like a Klay Thompson, like sort of feel to his game. Like what are we supposed to do? Right. He's got that high release. And even when you feel like you get a good contest, he just hits big shots. And that felt like the story of the last, 6 minutes or so of the game, because the Heat, it was closed for so much of that stretch, and the Heat would get it to, 1 point, and then Brook Lopez hit a three. Then AJ hit, a couple threes. And it felt like, the Bucks kind of were just able to sort of stiff arm the Heat repeatedly, but give credit to the Heat, Terry Rozier in particular, they just kept hitting shots, right? They just kind of kept matching. But fortunately the Bucks were holding serve, and they were kind of always playing from the front in that regard. And I was going to say, did they lead at any point tonight?
No.
Yeah.
They only tied it, once or twice?
Yeah. So, and it was a strange game as well. Like you look at the efficiency metrics, obviously not a high scoring game, but very few possessions. So it was a relatively slow paced game, which, makes sense. Like when what we were just talking about in terms of the half court stuff, this is a fantastic half court scoring night for the Bucks. I think they were like 115 points per play in the half court, which is fantastic. Normally if you're at like 100, you're happy with that. And both teams kind of were similar. Like they got some offensive rebounds, but offensive rebounds were not really a story tonight. I thought the Bucks, especially given the lack of size they had, generally did pretty well keeping the Heat off the glass with much consistency. So yeah, I mean, but again, like just having a guy like AJ who, with Dame, he's a dynamic, obviously shot creator and shot maker. And this was one of those really fun games to watch because it was just like, what's the defense going to do? Like they got no hope when he's doing what he's doing, right? All they can do is what we did eventually. They would just double him, right? Force the ball out of his hands, which almost worked well enough. But then to have, the likes of somebody like AJ out there to complement Dame and, it's just obviously a great kind of cheat code to have, and almost had that last, kind of kill shot three there that just came after the clock. But again, like it's so impressive for a guy, his relative inexperience level. It's just cool. Like when you look at these athletes, right? Like for a guy like that, who's not a star player, but he is so good at what he does. And he knows it, and he has so much confidence, and it does not matter, time, score, whatever. I always think the shot's going to go in when AJ takes it, and that's kind of one of the that's a pretty cool feeling to have as a fan to have that much confidence in a guy, and his teammates feel the same way. Why did Pat Connaughton want to pass to him? Because Pat Connaughton thinks AJ Green's making that shot, and he did. It just was that hair bit late. Well, by the way, one other random Pat thing. When the Heat were making that run, I think early in the fourth, I can't remember if it was like 3 or what the score was, but there was a play where I think Pat might have had either 1 or 2 blocks tonight, and it didn't really get mentioned, but I think he blocked Kel'el Ware right at the basket,
right under the rim.
Ware kind of got under the basket a little bit, but I mean, this is like a 7-foot dude, super athletic. Like if he's by himself, he's gonna go up and dunk it, but he kind of went up, and Pat was right there. Blocked the shot. I think Pat got, who was it? He got somebody driving baseline and kind of knocked it away before they were able to get to Brook as well in the first half as well. So just, again, like kudos to Pat, right? We've talked about his limitations, especially defensively. But, I think when you talk about like, and again, you can't, I never want to use like on-off stats to say like, well, those are because that player made the difference, right? Like on-off stats to me are more like descriptive of what happened when you've been on and off
playing
before.
With too, and
exactly. All these things are parts of it, but Pat's on-off stats have not been typically great the last few years. But this year, the top guys on the Bucks, Brook Lopez, so on-court net rating relative to off-court net rating, on-court minus off-court Brook Lopez plus 13.5. He's the best on the Bucks, mostly defense, as you'd expect. Bucks are 12.5 points per 100 better when Brook is on defensively versus when he's off. Color me shocked, Justin. I know you're shocked as well that the Bucks are way better defensively with Brook Lopez. Some people probably are surprised, but they're dumb. Number 2, Andre Jackson. Last year, Andre was a really bad net rating guy. This year, he's second on the team, plus 10.1 on-off differential, minus 12 net rating differential on defense. That feels right, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Number 3, AJ Green, plus 5.7. And ironically, they're worse with him offensively, but they are 8 points per 100 better defensively with AJ Green on the floor. But number 4, the guy that Andre and AJ have stolen a lot of minutes from, deservedly, Pat Connaughton, plus 3.4 points per 100. They're actually slightly better offensively, slightly better defensively with Pat on the floor. So again, not to say that Pat's, the reason that they've been better or that he's been above average, but Pat's not the reason that they've struggled early in the season. They've generally actually been a little bit better with him on the floor. And the weirdest, and we don't have to go deep on this now, but this is remains the weirdest thing to me about the kind of stats, and especially the lineup stats so far this season. Giannis is only a plus 2.1 differential this year. They're worse defensively with Giannis on the floor so far, and Dame has been a slight negative 0.1 overall, plus 5.2 offensively, but plus 5.3 in a bad way defensively. And the rest of the group, Bobby Portis is the worst and DeLon Wright the second worst. But that's sort of one of those things I have no idea what to make of that. It makes no sense. They haven't been good when Dame and Giannis have played together, even though they've both been terrific. So I will choose to see that as a glass half full, Justin, that we have yet to see be very obvious in what we saw all of last year. You play your best players together, very good things happen. I expect that will be what starts to happen moving forward. So maybe being at 500, despite those very weird stats from your best players who have been very productive otherwise individually, hopefully we get a more rational set of outcomes moving forward in terms of those kind of lineup data. And if that happens, I think the record is obviously going to improve pretty quickly.
Well, as you mentioned, you don't typically celebrate getting to 500, at least in the last 7 years of Bucks basketball. But here we are, and now Saturday we have a chance to celebrate being above 500 for the first time since opening night. What a time to be alive here for the Bucks this season. And by the way, too, Frank, I know nothing was going to be clinched one way or the other, even if the Bucks lost this game tonight, but now it officially sets up what we all envisioned back in August when the schedule was released. And man, that Bucks Pistons game is definitely going to determine who wins Group B of the NBA Cup.
So have the Pistons lost? Are they also undefeated?
Yeah, they're 2-0. So they play the Pacers Friday night. Even if they lose that, you beat the Bucks and you have the head-to-head.
Okay. So it really is win or no go home from a cup perspective in that Detroit game.
They're still in a decent spot for the wild card because they only trail Orlando right now for point differential. So if Orlando wins Group A, you still have a decent chance to finish in front of the Knicks and whoever else would finish in second. And Group C is the weirdest one, where right now the Bulls are the team that is leading Group C because it's like every team is beating every other team. The Celtics lost to the Hawks. The Cavs lost to the Celtics and so on. So there's still a chance that you could get the wild card. But we joke, but it is going to be interesting to see what the crowd is like Tuesday in Detroit, because for a team that the last time they were in the playoffs, it was when the Bucks swept them, I believe. That's going to be a playoff game, basically, for the Pistons to have a chance to be one of the final 8 teams in the NBA Cup.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no downside to me, right? I want to see this team win every possible games. And, these are all regular season games too. So, you just look at kind of the schedule coming up here, starting with the Washington game. Obviously, that's a game you cannot let up in. You got to turn the screws on that Wizards team. You saw last year, you've already, we saw what happened last year in that late season game in Washington where they just frittered away a super winnable game. So obviously you just got to take care of business and win that one. And then, from 10-9, obviously, then you hope that you can just start to actually press ahead and gain some headroom between yourself and 500. But hopefully, and again, like fingers crossed with Giannis, it's probably my biggest thing between my Thanksgiving. What am I thankful for? I will say I will be thankful for Giannis to get 4 days, or actually like almost a week off here between games. Hopefully get his knee to a good place. I mean, he obviously traveled with the team, went out to work out, but it didn't sound like he was, it just wasn't going to happen tonight. So
I mean, the fact that it was even
a week off is
the fact that it was even a question as late as it was, that he went through his usual routine, and then it was at the very last minute of let's see, and we didn't officially know until about 10 minutes before tip, at the very last moment when you can submit the lineups, that he was not going to play. So it wasn't like this is something we spotted days ago and had concerns over. So I guess that's what gives you the most optimism there. And, just to wrap up there too, the Wizards you mentioned, I mean, look, everybody's going to criticize the schedule that the Bucks have had, the teams that they've beaten up on, but they're at least winning these games. And you can only play the teams that are in front of you. Their next the caveat is we don't know what 2 of the games are yet. But of the games that are scheduled as of this moment, up until January 8th, 2 of the next 14 games are against teams with a winning record, and that is the Celtics and the Cavaliers. So you have a lot of these types of games. So this is a golden opportunity for the Bucks to emerge in the discussion for that 3 spot and really start to solidify themselves here. And, we think start to get healthy and reintroduce some pieces and start to iron out all of this for the time that your schedule starts to pick up. I say that, but I had to quadruple check this and then just realize, it's a product of being in the Eastern Conference and what we've seen. The Bucks, and I realize it's way too early to look ahead at remaining schedule, but the Bucks have the, I think, 3rd easiest remaining schedule in the league because of the amount of Eastern Conference teams that you have on there. So it's why we stressed, it was disappointing. There were some things that were troublesome and problematic that you really needed to clean up, but it didn't mean the season was over through the first 10 games of the season, especially with the schedule that's in front of you here.
16-0, Justin. Win the next 16, puts you at 25-9. We'll be pretty happy. Get some revenge game wins against the Celtics and Cavs. But I was going to say that we kind of buried the lead. Khris Middleton got in a 5-on-5 workout as well, which is great to hear. I've been hesitant to let myself become too optimistic about anything sort of imminently happening with him returning.
Yeah.
But certainly last week, with that report from Shams, that sort of laid the groundwork, I think, for him coming back. If not, Saturday very soon. And then the other thing that happened too, I was watching a clip of Thanasis, and it was, I think, one with his podcast he did with Jim Ozarski, and Jim was talking about Khris and talking about the possibility of Khris coming back, like we're saying, maybe end of this week. And Thanasis looked at the camera in this clip and he winks knowingly at the camera. And I don't know what Thanasis exactly knows about Chris's rehab, but the way he did that, I was just like, Thanasis, you're making me feel a little bit more optimistic about Khris Middleton coming back soon. So thank you for that. Throwing me a little bit of bone while I enjoy my Thanksgiving turkey. We'll see if I'm just getting my hopes up prematurely, but whatever. The Bucks are on a winning streak. So if Khris misses another week after this, again, as long as he's getting closer, which certainly 5-on-5 suggests that that's, again, another milestone that he's progressing in the right direction versus, other players on other teams who continue to just be out perpetually and aren't making that sort of progress. So one more step to go. Let's hope that it is. Let's hope that it's soon.
Do you think we're going to hear Khris say he's going to find the leak? He's going to find the source that leaked that to Shams, that it's any day now, and he's not going to rest until we find out who that is. The one thing I'm in the same boat as you. I don't want to plan on anything for Khris Middleton when he's back. Great. I did find it funny that I think on NBA Today, earlier today on Tuesday, the reporting from Shams was Khris Middleton's expected back after Thanksgiving, sometime after Thanksgiving, where you're like, well, that's literally the rest of the season after today, like anytime after Thanksgiving here. But Doc did say, he mentioned the 5-on-5. And again, it kind of ties into the Thanasis wink of yes, he went through 5-on-5. The next steps are getting on the floor. I can't tell you when that's going to happen. We're just trying to get him back on the floor. I didn't hear anything bad from the 5-on-5, and I think if anything, if there was no progress or if there was bad news, I would have heard it. So I suppose that's a good sign, but I don't know when he's going to be back on the floor. So then there's that. There's the wet blanket that comes on that. So we'll see. Maybe it's Saturday. Maybe it's Tuesday against his original team to secure the NBA Cup Group B for the Bucks. But it does feel imminent here, and it's going to be a big boost for this offense. That will do it for today's show. We are not going to have a show.
Justin, I just want to give credit to our friend Eric. I feel like Eric has asked about the 5-on-5 thing so many times.
A lot.
And Doc has, I think, gotten sick of Eric asking about whether Khris played 5-on-5. So I think basically Eric bullied Doc into bullying Khris to play 5-on-5. And if Khris Middleton plays an NBA basketball game in the next week, I'm going to give credit to our friend Eric Name for basically Khris Middleton into playing NBA basketball. So Eric, we're thankful for you, among other things, for being a great beat writer and for potentially bullying Khris Middleton into playing basketball.
Yeah, I mean, he played a long time there. He also, I was talking with him before, I think, the Hornets game, and he was telling me the edict from I don't think we're giving away too much here, from the Athletic was like, we don't really want to focus on, the post-game recaps as much this year. Like, there can't be that much to say. And then the team starts 2-8, and it was you sure about that?
Yeah. Yeah. It would be nice to just focus on, like, long winning streaks and all the great things that are happening and going right, and the Bucks
16-game win streak.
Yeah,
16-game win streak.
Well, no,
because
Justin, 16 games plus what are they in a 5-game win streak right now? So 21.
8. It's 8 if you ask Doc Rivers. But he did joke before the game. I think it was Tim Reynolds that asked him, "Hey, is the rest of the East just playing for third because of what the Celtics and Cavs are doing?" And Doc said, like, no, we knew those teams were going to be good. I think we're all kind of starting to figure it out. And we've lost 9 games. We could still win 17 this year.
Okay. I've got a kid who needs some attention, but good night.
All right. That'll do it for us today. No show tomorrow on Thanksgiving. We're going to take the day off, but Camille and I will be back on Friday to preview maybe the return of Khris Middleton. For Frank, I'm Justin. We will talk to you once again on Friday here. Again, maybe some news on Khris. The injury report will come out Friday afternoon. And look, if we learn anything else in the next couple days, if we learn anything else in the next 12 to 24 hours, maybe we'll find a time when our schedules can work to deliver that show earlier. But Camille and I were planning on taking the day off for Thanksgiving. So don't anticipate a show on Thanksgiving. If there is one, I think it means there's good news for the Bucks and specifically Khris Middleton. But that'll do it for today's show. For Frank, I'm Justin. We will talk to you guys once again tomorrow or potentially Friday on Locked On Bucks.